Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, Namaste, Adab, good evening. Very happy to be here this evening to be with you for the next 2 hours talking about communication, my favorite subject. When he was introducing me, I was wondering who is he talking about. So I must meet that person, because I don't see myself as the one he describes. So let me reintroduce myself. I was born and brought up in this place. I'm Pakka Ahmedabadi, that is.
But not staying here.
I spent 24 years of my life, and middle class Hindu family. My father at the age 16 wanted me to be an engineer or doctor. There were only 2 choices in my time. Right now there are many. You can be an actor, you can be a weightlifter, you can do all kinds of stuff. In my time it's binary, medical, doctor and engineer. So my father asked me, he said, Baba, what are you going to be? So I told him I'm going to be a teacher. So my father looked at me solemnly, he said, it's a noble profession. Leave it for noble people. I realized that arguing with my father is absolutely useless. As it is in India, you don't argue with your father. So during SSC exam, I dropped mathematics. So when the results came, I got 0. He expected 100 out of 100. He looked at the results. I was good at math, He said, what happened? I said, he didn't appear for the exam. He said, how come? I said, no mathematics, no science. No medicine, no engineering. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I told you, I want to be a teacher. He said, okay. Gave up on me, no choices. So I became a teacher at age 16 in an elementary school. I taught there part-time for 25 rupees a month. I loved it. I earned 25 rupees a month, for which I rode bicycle 10 miles a day. At that time it was no kilometer, it was miles. Just in case you thought I mistake. And I loved it. And that was when I was 16, I'm 66. For 50 years I've done this. And since I love it, that's why I'm doing it. I don't have to do it anymore. And I love doing it, therefore I'm here even at age 66. In the meantime, I've taught in 10 countries, from elementary school to PhD level and across the industry. And what I've learned, I want to share with you this evening. So let me continue with my career. So I got my first job, as I said, a part-time. Then I got my first degree, which was in Hindi and Sanskrit literature. They wanted me to say, you committed a mistake of choosing arts, at least take political science and economics. So when I went and filled out the form, Hindi and Sanskrit literature. So I got the degree again, only job available was teaching. So I started teaching in Unnati High School at Mahalakshmi. The school opened the same day I started. So I was the first teacher. My salary was 177. Got a raise, 160 plus 17 rupees for an honors degree. The people who graduated with me in engineering, they were getting 350. My father said, see, he's making double the money. I said, I'll make it, don't worry, if that is the criterion. And I love doing it. But the funny thing happened, the very first day I walked into my classroom at Unnati High School, my job was to teach them Rama, Ramau, Ramaha, Jalam, Jale, Jalani, Sanskrit, And as I walked into the classroom, I suddenly realized I was 20 years old. I was teaching SSC class, the students were 17, not much age difference. So principal told me to wear a Gandhi cap to distinguish me from the students. He said, otherwise somebody will beat you up, So for my safety, I wore a cap. I walked in a classroom and 44 students were looking at me. And I suddenly realized that I was in a classroom like that till yesterday. And when the teacher was dry, boring or uninteresting, all 44 of us rubbed our sandals and shoes on the bare cement floor. And 44 people doing it makes a hell of a racket. And the principal will be stalking the corridor, making note. In management term, we call it instant feedback. So I realized that if I wanted to keep my job, I have to keep them from rubbing their sandals and shoes. Because otherwise, the contract doesn't get renewed. And I also realized that I knew a lot about Kalidasa and Rama, Ramaha. I did not know how to keep them from rubbing their sandals and shoes. Nobody taught me that. And that day I realized that I knew zero about communication. And since that day, I've been studying it, trying to understand it, and I tell you something. Even today, the education system is the same. And I say that as a person, as I told you, I was taught from elementary school to all the way postgraduate level in 10 countries. Even today, research after research suggests that people with a bachelor's degree cannot write comprehensively, nor can they understand a paragraph which is well written. 3 courses most wanted in industry, and this is according to industrial research. 1 is communication, secondly selling, thirdly motivation. If you think about it, all 3 have to do with communication. How do you sell? Talking. How do you motivate? By being a role model and by talking and inspiring them. So basically somebody did not do the job. And whatever little they do is all wrong. So let me tell you the problems with the education as it stands today. And I've been guilty of this because I've taught in schools and colleges, as I said, for all these years. Schools and colleges teach reading and writing. Because the 3 R's according to traditional educational system are reading, writing, and what is the third one? Arithmetic. I don't know how they got R out of arithmetic. To make it fit, they got rid of there to make it 3 R's. So reading, writing, and arithmetic. And if you think about it, in the total process of communication, an average person, ladies and gentlemen, spends 9% of his time writing, 16% of his time speaking, about 25 to 30% of his time, 9% of time writing, 16% reading. 9% writing, 16% reading, 25 to 30% of his time speaking, and 40 to 45% of his time listening. This is the average statistic for an average person. Now, I'm a professional talker. I talk more than 25 to 30% of the time. If you are a journalist, you might write more than 9% of the time. But average person, 9% writing, 16% reading, 25 to 30% speaking, 45% of time writing. What they teach you, reading and writing, which total is how much? 25%, 1/4 of the process. And they do a lousy job of that. They do not teach you speaking and listening. And they expect you to do it. And that 75% of the process is not taught. Even in reading and writing, what is taught in the process of communication, they emphasize grammar. I have been guilty of teaching grammar in 4 languages: Hindi, Sanskrit, Gujarati, and English. 4 languages, until I realized it was a waste of time. Another thing they teach you is that one of the greatest fallacies is that the better vocabulary you have, the better communicator you become. That's a lie. In order to communicate effectively in any language, ladies and gentlemen, you require 1,200 words, which is 300 words less than a kindergarten child's vocabulary. A kindergarten child has 1,500 words vocabulary. You require 300 less to communicate effectively in that language. I know that because when I went to America at age 24, I did not speak English. 6 months later, I was teaching English to Americans in the same university. 12 months later, they gave me MA in English to justify their mistake. They rationalized it. We have hired him, so give him a degree. I got MA in English literature from California State. So the point is, grammar is not required for becoming a good communicator. Great vocabulary is not required. You can write a bestseller with 3,000 words. Because if you put more than 3,000 words in any given book, it will not be a bestseller. We have a computer programming now available, software. See, if you put all the bestsellers available in the market, put them in the computer, ask them a question with this software, how many words without repetition used in this book? So the answer is less than 3,000. If it's too complicated, people won't understand, therefore it will become bestseller. For becoming bestseller, it has to become easy to understand. So 3,000 words, which all of you possess, by the way. You know that much. So the language and the vocabulary is never a problem in communication. So grammar is not important. Vocabulary is not important. I'm blasphemous, I know. And third one is the worst thing. They also teach you in schools and colleges that words have meanings. Is that true? Yes or no? Let me tell you, words have no meanings. Words have meanings only in dictionaries. In communication, you give meaning to the words. Let me illustrate, since this is hard to swallow. Because you've been brainwashed into this, that words have meanings. So let me give you a simple 4-letter word in English language. Love. L-O-V-E. All of you know the word? Right? Now go home tonight, and if your child is in the home, 6, 7-year-old, tell him, I love you. Would the kid believe you? Or if you're working at a job, go to your boss and say, I'm very enthusiastic about this. Sir, I feel very confident. Would he believe you? Nice words, enthusiasm, love. Did you convey that meaning? Yes or no? So the words have meanings? Think about it. See, they teach you because vocabulary is easy to teach. I can give you a book and say, memorize all these words. There are books available, bestsellers. Word power, how to make 30 days to a more powerful vocabulary. And you read that and you master that, you come to a lecture like that, you know how you talk? Ladies and gentlemen, epistemologically speaking, communication means one thing, but let's not go into polemics about it. Let's first look at it from ontological perspective. You know what I'm talking about? Yes? No, I know you don't because I don't. I just string a whole lot of words together and it sounds good, So the point is, use words. The rule to remember in communication, ladies and gentlemen, is use words to express, not to impress. Use words to express, not to impress. A lot of people use words to impress. I give you an example. Once I was coming from Chennai to Mumbai. I was wearing kurta pajama. And we crossed, cleared the security, and we were walking towards the airplane. Behind me was a hefty American, And he looked at me, and I looked weird enough for him. He said, hi. That's the enthusiasm only Americans have. So I looked and I said, hi. So since he started the conversation, I thought I'll continue. I said, where are you from? He said, Florida. Man, look just like this. And he waved this cardboard fan he had picked up at Marina Beach with a little picture of a palm tree and a water. He said, Marina, he says, Florida, man, looks just like this. Showed it to me. Kurta pajama, he never thought I would have been to Florida ever. So, right? So I didn't argue. I said, that's great. I said, what do you do? He said, I'm a teacher. That hooked me because I've been a teacher all my life. So I got very excited. I said, yeah, you are a teacher. What do you teach? He looks at me. He says, eschatology. How many of you know what it means? Tell me. Raise your hand. How many know what eschatology is? Anybody? You all failed vocabulary. Anybody? Okay. No. Huh? No. You guess, you lose marks. Okay. So when he said that, I realized that he was playing games with his words because he must have done to a whole lot of Indians. Most people don't know this, what it means. Secondly, even if your mother tongue was English, chances are you will not know it because it's a very different technical, almost a technical term used in a particular subject. So when he said that, you know what Indians will respond? Oh, that's interesting. Without knowing what the guy is talking about. And the guy will come and say, what's interesting? Then you feel stupid. So that was the game. So the moment he said, I teach eschatology, I looked at him. I said, you are a preacher, huh? And his face dropped. And he said, you know? I said, yes, I do. Why do you do this to people? He realized that I caught him in his game. I said, why do you do this to people? He said, I'm sorry. He said, what do you do? I said, I used to teach the same thing. So now, I got a piece of paper here. Okay, so he says, so let me tell you what eschatology is, so next time you feel wiser. Eschatology is a term used in religious studies, which I did another master's in later on, so I was not lying to him, where there is a discussion as to what happens after we die. Any theory that has to do with what happens after death or after the end of history in theological studies is known as eschatology. At the end of history, like karma theory, heaven, hell, what will happen, rebirth, all that will be part of eschatology. All right. So what I'm saying is that use words to express, not to impress. Now, if vocabulary is not important, grammar is not important, words are not important, what is important to become a good communicator? Let me tell you what's important. Let me quote one of the finest communicators this country has produced, in his words and his experience. I stood up, but my heart sank into my boots. My head was reeling and I felt as though the whole court was doing likewise. The judge must have laughed and the lawyers no doubt enjoyed the spectacle. But I was past seeing anything. I sat down and told the agent I could not conduct a case. You know who said that? Mahatma Gandhi. Right. Mahatma Gandhi. Think about it. If you look at his description about his state of mind, I stood up, my head was reeling, I felt the whole court was doing likewise, my heart was sinking to my boots. If you read a psychiatric textbook by Friedman and Kaplan, that's a common textbook used in psychiatric study in India, and if you open a page on people having nervous breakdown, this is the description. What I just quoted is the description of a person having a nervous breakdown. For all practical purposes, he had a nervous breakdown. He couldn't stand it. Same thing what happened to Arjuna in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Siddhanti mama gatrane mukashya parishyushyate. My mouth is drying out, my body is shaking, my palms are perspiring, Ganudhanush is slipping out of my hand. If he goes to a doctor, he says hyperhidrosis. Right? So, diagnostic label, I remember one friend of mine, his son had excessive sweating of the palm, so he took his son to the doctor. The doctor checked him out. He said, your son is suffering from hyperhidrosis. This guy was absolutely flabbergasted. He says, is it really bad? He said, no, we'll take care of it. He comes to me, he's very worried. He said, my son has a problem. I said, what happened? He said, I took him to a doctor. He said, he's suffering from hyperhidrosis. How bad is it? He says. I said, is there some sweating of the palm? He said, yeah. I said, that's the medical translation of the same thing. He said, why didn't you tell me that? I said, think about this. You go to a doctor and say, my son has excessive sweating of the palm. He said, I agree with you, give me 500. Would you give? If he says hyperhidrosis, it's worth 500 rupees. Yes or no? Right? He said, you're right, he's suffering from hyperhidrosis. The consultation fee 500. So you see the point. So people who are in professional things, they use jargon to mystify people. And they forget that lay people don't understand it. So they're blocking the communication. I teach a course to doctors, the art of medicine. Because British Medical Association did a survey in the 80s, which showed that English health system is losing 500 million pounds per year because doctors cannot communicate to their patients. Because, and I just made a report to the parliamentary committee in India about medical curriculum. And I said, one thing you got to introduce is communicating with the patient, because medical colleges operate on a premise that doctors do not have to know how to communicate, because either the patient will be under anesthesia or he'll be dead. See? Now, what is important? Gandhiji's words again, after this experience, this is what he said. This experience has taught me the economy of words. Now I can give myself a certificate that a thoughtless word never escape my tongue or my pen. So clear thinking, clarity of thought, ladies and gentlemen, always precedes clear communication. That's the key. And how does that come? By doing your homework. How do you do your homework? In communication. So, we have another Nobel Prize winner giving you advice how to do the homework. You heard of Rudyard Kipling? Yes, no? Huh? Which book is most known? Huh? Which one? Jungle Book, Jungle Book. Okay. I tell you something else about Rudyard Kipling also. Why guy won Nobel Prize? Huh? Once he wrote an article for a newspaper, the editor wrote back that you don't know how to handle English language. The article is rejected. This is how this works. So, Rudyard Kipling said, I have 6 friends. Write down the names of his 6 friends because they will help you to do your homework to become a good communicator. I'll give you 6 friends of Rudyard Kipling who will help you do your homework. Whom, what, these are the 6 friends. Whom, what, when, where, how, and why. You got it? You got 6? Yes, no? Yes. Okay. So first thing you have to decide, why do you want to communicate something? You want to communicate something to somebody. What is the purpose? So you have to decide when you do the homework the purpose of that communication. So if you want to make any presentation, for example, anywhere, there are 3 major reasons why people make presentations. And there are permutation combinations, but 3 major reasons why people make presentation. Give me one reason why people make presentation. Huh? To sell the thoughts. Okay. Share the thoughts. Okay. To educate or inform or to share. Fair enough. That's 1. 2? To appraise people. That is again to share and inform and educate. Acquaint. The same thing. You educate them, you acquaint them. Okay. Next?
To convince.
To convince. Right. That's the second one. To convince, to motivate, to persuade. Right. The second one. Third? Never communication to never to impress. No. To entertain. Third is to entertain. Now, they are not mutually exclusive, which means in a presentation on motivation, you might still educate people and you might still tell a joke to make them laugh. But the focus should be what is the purpose. See, if I tell you 10 stories and don't say anything, you go out and say, there was no lecture on communication, some nice stories. Huh? Right? True or not? Because I can make you laugh for half an hour by telling you all kinds of stories. Huh? But then I have not fulfilled my purpose of what the says on the wall here. Right? You say we could have gone to some show to laugh. True? So the point is the focus should be very clear in your presentation, should be geared towards that. Then, whom do you want to communicate? The target audience. The more you know about your target audience, the better off you will be. So you must understand your target audience. It helps to understand your target audience if you understand yourself. If you understand yourself as an individual, it will help you understand your target audience. Because human beings at the psychological level are basically the same. See, you and I have the same needs. We like to be liked. I just give you a simple exercise. Close your eyes, everybody, for a second. Please close your eyes. Close your eyes for a second. As your eyes are closed, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to imagine that you got up this morning and not a single person acknowledged your existence by nodding at you, saying hello to you, waving at you, nothing. Verbally or non-verbally, nobody acknowledged you. You got out of the house, went to school or college or workplace. Again, for the whole day, not a single person talked to you, acknowledged you, looked at you, wished you. The day is over, you're going back home. For the entire day since you woke up, not a single person has talked to you, wished you, acknowledged your existence. How do you feel? You get in touch with that feeling, please open your eyes. Okay, let's hear it. How do you feel, ma'am?
Very lonely, isolated.
Very lonely and isolated. How about you, sir? Feel bad? Depressed? Depressed? Rejected? Dejected? Anybody felt great? Great, nobody talked to me today. Very exciting day I had. Anybody felt that way?
Very awkward.
Very awkward, right? So the point is, we like to be liked and we are gregarious. We are a social animal. We like in contact with people. There's a disease called marasmus. A child by the time he was 6 months old, if there is no human contact in any which way or no touch, his spinal column shrivels up and the kid dies. Think about it. So human contact, even negative is welcome, then no contact. Please understand. See? I remember an Indian couple in Canada. I was doing at that time some clinical work. So this wife of my friend, whom I known the couple for a long time, and she calls me up and says, I've never told you, and we were, very embarrassed, but my husband beats me up. Can you do something? I said, I'm sorry to hear this. I'll talk to him. So I called up this guy. I said, listen, this is Canada. Your wife is decent enough to tell me, instead of that, if she called the police, you'll be in jail. So I said, just for your own sake and for her sake, don't do this. He said, you're right, I wouldn't do it. A week later, she calls. I said, how are you doing? He said, terrible. I said, you still beat you up? He said, no. I said, then what's the problem? He said, at least he paid some attention when he beat me up. Think about it. He said, now he doesn't even look at me. So the point is this. So we like human contact. So at psychological level, we are all the same. So no matter what I said this evening, one thing that overrides all this, and that's the human factor. People like to be liked. People like to be accepted. People like to be respected. And people have the same fears and same anxiety regardless of their race, creed, education, religious background, sex. So understand your target market or target audience. Whom are you saying? More you know about that person, the better it is. Then, when? Sense of timing. One of the persons with the worst sense of timing was Draupadi in the Mahabharata. Poor Duryodhan, where the land looked like water and water looked like land. Duryodhan fisal gaya. What did she say? Ande ke bed. And he said, okay baby, I'm going to fix you. True or not? Huh? She couldn't go after her and say, sorry yaar, galti ho gayi. Would it work? Huh? Kaman se jo tir chhoot gaya, so chhoot gaya. So words are like, that's why Gandhi said, a thoughtless word never escaped my tongue or pen. Because once it escapes, there is no redeeming it. There is no taking it back. There is no retrieval. You can say, I'm sorry all you want, till the cows come home. Doesn't work. Therefore, you have to think beforehand. Sense of timing. I give you an excellent example of how it worked in a case in America where the sense of timing was the one that won the case. There was a case, a person was accused of murdering his wife. So he hired the defense attorney, who was a bright gold medalist and fresh from the college, one of the best colleges in America, law schools. The prosecuting attorney representing the state was a wise old man. In America, they still have this jury system, 12 members. We did away with it because we realized it's easier to bribe one person than 12. Right? So we have no jury system. So they have this jury system. And once both the parties make their argument, then they have, before they rest their case, they have called summing up. So this defense attorney got up for giving this final argument. He turns to the members of the jury. So members of the jury, as the honorable judge will tell you, there is something in the law that tells you that if you have some doubt about my client's guilt, it has to be beyond reasonable doubt. And if you have some doubt somewhere, you cannot render a verdict of guilty. And I'm going to prove it to you that you have some doubt in your mind, because the woman he has accused of murdering is just walking through the courtroom door at this minute. All the 12 members of the jury turned towards the door. Nobody was coming. So he says, see, you have some doubt. Now, the point is, he committed that fatal error. I told you about that human factor. Those 12 members, when they didn't see anybody, and when he says, see, I told you, how would they have felt? Insulted, humiliated, that the guy took us for a ride. Is that true? Yes or no? So if they felt bad, prosecuting attorney with this keen sense of timing got up. He said, members of the jury, my learned friend is right. You did look at the door, but his client did not. I rest my case. Because defendant knew there was no woman coming through that door. Won the case. Just one line. Right sense of time. They were feeling bad, he used that to his advantage. So sense of timing, when to say, what to say. There's a psychologist by the name of Dr. in California. He does marriage counseling. And his husbands and wives classified as different things. When they come for marriage counseling, he asks them only one question. That when you meet each other for the first time, which happens twice a day, when you wake up and in the evening when one of us or both of us come home from work, what are the first few sentences that you exchange? And he bases the diagnosis based on that. And he has them classified. Here is an energy expert husband. Efficiency expert. Honey, wake up, it's 7 in the morning. Yesterday you forgot to give me the latest house to bill. And if the kids have to go to the school, I'm supposed to drop them up, keep them ready by 7 or 7 because I'm going to leave at that time. I don't want to be late at the office. First dialogue in the morning. Efficiency expert wife. Wake up, yesterday you forgot to bring the vegetables. Opening sign. In the evening when they meet, did you forget to bring the vegetables today? 10 years of this, they have marriage breakdown, and the word for it, mental cruelty. Maximum number of divorces are because of this. Communication breakdown. In India, we don't have. We husband and wife talk through the newspaper. Yes? Okay. All right. So, when to say, what to say, how to say. That's the next one. Right? How to say. Now that brings us to a whole lot of other things. As I told you, speech. We speak, which is 25 to 30% of the time. But nobody taught us how to. The tone, the intonation, the voice modulation. As a matter of fact, voice, which is the instrument of communication, is the most neglected. Not only that, our parents systematically teach us how not to use it efficiently. In your home, if there is a kid or you had a kid and he says something a little loud, what do you tell him? Hey, is it right or not? Bumne marwani. Right? All of us have a voice which is about 2 octave range. But you use only 5. Hello, you? Somebody died yesterday. Same 5 notes, somebody dies, somebody gets married, the same notes. Same range. And then some profession do something to people's voices. So their familiar voice becomes prominent and natural voice says goodbye. Like teachers, some teachers, they talk at home that people feel like they're in a classroom. My sister was a gynecologist, day in and day out talking to ladies. FRCOG London. Every time she says, hello, how are you, Rushi? I felt pregnant. Just the way she used her voice. So, some profession. So, voice is an instrument, learn to use that. Modulate your voice. Depending on what you want to convey. Then the pause is in between. Waqfa. In Urdu there is a word for it. Waqfa. For impact, you got to pause at the right time for the right amount of time also. If it's too long a pause, people's minds start wandering. Then, when you are talking, what is your body doing? Because the latest research suggests that about 80% of the communication occurs at the non-verbal level. And non-verbal communication has 4 components. Eye contact, voice, gestures, and postures. Eye contact, voice, gestures, and postures. Eye contact. Amongst equal, the right amount of eye contact is about 30 to 70% of the time. But there are cultural considerations. In a traditional society like ours, if a man is talking to a woman and looks at that man, manati benati. So that's not acceptable behavior. Or if you talk to your father like that, and look at him, badtameez aankh lada hai. So eye contact has 3 major purposes, ladies and gentlemen. One, it makes people feel included in what you are saying. See, if throughout this evening, for 2 hours, I talk to this gentleman here and not look at anybody else, what would you say? Take him to a canteen. Huh? Let us go home. Right? So I come here, I look at you, feel included in what I'm saying. Is that true or not? Huh? That's 1. 2, it does not allow their mind to wander. It keeps their mind from wandering off. 3, it also gives you running feedback online as to what they think about what you're saying. They might have a question on their faces, they might have doubt on their faces, they might have inquisitiveness on their faces, they might be suspicious of what you're saying. All that is visible if you know how to read it on their faces. You see? So eye contact is a very, very crucial aspect of communication. See, the body language. The subject is studied as a subject only in the last 60, 70 years, systematically. However, in every culture there are examples of body language. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, if you read it, my mistake. How many people read Bhagavad Gita? 1, on this side. 2, okay. Okay. Chapter 2, what is the name? Sankhya Yoga. Okay, 2nd chapter, verse 54. 2nd chapter, verse 54, Sankhya Yoga. Arjuna is asking Krishna a question. Sthita pragnasya ka bhasha, samadhistasya keshava. Arjuna is asking Krishna a question. He said, you're talking about man of steady wisdom. If I met him on the street, how would I recognize him? How does he walk? How does he talk? How does he sit? Think about it. What are the verbal, non-verbal characteristics of a person who is a man of steady wisdom? How would I recognize him? That's body language. You see. If I stand here and say, ladies and gentlemen, in my humble opinion, how do you feel? I mean, anything but humble, right? What message did you accept? The non-verbal. Whenever there is a conflict between verbal message and a non-verbal, people intuitively, subconsciously accept the non-verbal message. And the Problem is, most people have been taught to use words and be careful about the words, so all these subconscious messages, they go unprotected, uncontrolled. So people know what is to be known. But they also feel it as, you might say the nicest thing, but you say, oh, something about that guy I don't like. You know, the person will feel. The negative vibes will still reach him. So, another example of non-verbal language in our culture. You heard of Manan Mishra? Anybody? Yeah? Lady over there. Who was he? My brother-in-law. Right? Okay. Manan Mishra was a contemporary of Adi Shankaracharya. Adi Shankaracharya wanted to be Mahapandit. He had to travel all over India and challenge to these Pandits, other scholars, to Shastrartha, scriptural debate. He went to the village of Manan Mishra and asked the villagers, where would I find the house of Manan Mishra? The villagers told him, keep walking. When you hear two paras discussing the Vedas, that's the house of Manan Mishra. He found the house. He questioned Manan Mishra as challenged into Shastrartha. Now somebody has to decide who is the winner. Manan Mishra's wife was equally brilliant, so she was appointed a judge. How did she decide who is the winner? She put fresh flower garland in the necks, and she said, whichever garland withers first, that person will be the loser. Because when you cannot answer questions, you become nervous, your body will generate heat and make the flowers wither. And the most sophisticated lie detector used today on Preeti Jain and company is still based on the same principle. Huh? It's the same principle. Galvanic still response meter, GSR, is known as, if you want a jargon. GSR, which is the parasympathetic nervous system activity. It's a more jargon for you. Sounds learned, no? See what happens, what the lie detector does, polygraph. Let me tell you. I work with police for the last 20 years. Lie detector does basically three major parameters: respiratory rate, perspiration, and your pulse rate, which is autonomic nervous system. You are hooked to the machine. And then, when you are hooked to the machine, the interrogator asks questions, the answer to which he already knows. Because the machine has to establish the baseline. When the person is telling the truth, and answer is yes. When the person is telling the truth, and answer is no. He has to know both the things. No? Because you can lie saying no, you can lie saying yes. So, say if I am questioning my friend here, his name is Brijesh Bhargava. I know him for years. So he's hooked to the machine. I ask him, is your name Brijesh Bhargava? What will be his answer? Yes. He's telling the truth. Huh? Are you from Tamil Nadu? His answer will be no. What? No. Because he is from UP. So answer will be no, but the truthful answer. Huh? Are you in music business? He says yes. So answer is truthful. Huh? Did you ever work for Burroughs Wellcome? No. The answer is still truthful. So once I have established this, that when he says no, how is the register in these things? Once he says truthful and yes, how this, then I ask other questions where there is not that clear. Have you ever stolen anything in your life? No. Now assumption is that every kid has taken 2 rupees from mother's purse. If you're smart enough, that is. So, right, so the person says, if I did, but if I say yes to that, then he's going to pin this one on me also. So he pauses, so the machine records the pauses, then he thinks about it, so eyes go up, so that registers. So all their activities register. So you find out when there's a mild deviation, what is the graph. You see, this is how the machine works. So the point is this to do with body language. For the purpose of body language, the body is divided into 3 parts. But before we go into that, I'll give you a simple little exercise. All of you are writing paper and a pencil or something or pen? Yes, no? Yes. Okay, well, that's nice. Okay, I'll give some words. You write that word and write them vertically, okay? Like that, 1, 2, 3. And leave some space in between, okay? Say 3, 4 lines in between. First word, surprised. Then leave some room and then go next word. Surprised. Next one, defensive. Next, nervous. Next, confident. Next, bored, B-O-R-E-D. Next, suspicious. Next, territorial, T-R-R-I-T-O-R-I-A-L. Territorial. Now what I want you to do, just give you a flavor of it. I want you to write down every gesture, posture that we convey that. So for example, the first one is which one? Surprise, right? What will a surprised person do? How do you know he's surprised? By looking at him. Eyes pop up. His mouth is open, right? Huh? Really? Right? Huh? So you describe all that. So write with the rest of it now. Okay, let's start. First one was surprise, we got that. Next one is defensive. What will be the gestures? Huh? Gestures. Uncrossing. Huh? Okay, looks down, moving away, legs crossed, moving away from you, right? Buttoning the coat. Huh? Defensive gesture. Now, remember, you got to put this into context. So if I am sitting here with my legs and arms crossed, sure the posture is defensive, but not necessarily to what you're telling me. I might be feeling cold, which means I am protecting myself against cold. Protecting nonetheless, but not against what you are saying. So you got to put it into proper context. So one time how do we come to this sort of thing? Like ankles like that, when people wrap their ankles around the chair like that, generally it's believed to be that they are withholding some information. So we were studying this behavior and we had video shooting, about 35 people, we asked them different questions and then studied their responses in body language for the coming to conclusions. So in this particular case, when we ask a particular question about 35 people, 4 people had the legs like that, they crossed in different ways and wrap their ankles around the legs of the chair. So we asked them, we said, were you withholding something? So 2 people say yes. Other 2 people say no, but we wanted to go to the bathroom. So they were withholding but not information, you see. Right. So you got to put it into context. Next one is nervous. What do? Face down. Blank face. What else? What is? Yeah. Moving back and forth, changing weight, Right? Lack of eye contact, not absolutely not, but not proper not appropriate eye contact. You see. Then perspiration, yes. You fill with something in your hand, right? Ladies sometimes fill with their Mangal Sutra. Right. Then nail biting, yes. Huh? Okay. Next is bored. Huh. Confident. Okay. Misguiding me, sir. All right. What is it? Confidence. Okay. Confidence. Eye contact, which is okay. Well-balanced posture. Gestures generally at the waist level. This level. Generally speaking, let me give you a rule of thumb. Generally speaking, all the gestures that to do with non-assertive behavior are below the waist level. Like this. It's like around there. Or some people pull their shirt all the time. You must have seen that, These are non-assertive gestures. Assertive gestures are at the waist level. This level. Aggressive gestures upper part of the torso. They move back, lean. Their body leans in your territory. See, somebody asked me what is territory. See, all of us require some space to feel comfortable. That's known as a social distance or a space in which comfort zone. We call it elbow room. Elbow. I require this much elbow room. So which means don't encroach in this space. That's why police people, when they want to interrogate somebody, they necessarily encroach on the place of the guy. The guy is seated over here, 500 watts, and I said, did you do this? Right? That's the encroaching in the guy's space to putting on the defensive, under pressure, you see. It's a tactic. Now the point is, yes ma'am?
Proxemics.
Proxemics means space. Yeah, that's the proxemics is the science of space. Okay. So, new word for some of you. Proxemics, from which proximity comes, you know. So, proxemics. Now, thank God I know this word. Otherwise, she would have failed me today. You know. Okay. So, the science of space. Now, this torso is the, when you are in the other person's territory, this aggressive gestures are above the waist level. This is a rule of thumb. Okay, next one is bored. Yeah, yawning, most known pastime, right? Then doodling, drawing something on a piece of paper, right? Doodling, people what they do with a pencil, curly cues and all that they make. Or tapping something, right? Or putting the, stuff like that. Okay, next. Suspicious. Suspicious. What will it be? Really? Looking from the sideway posture, really? Corner of your eyes, body is like that. Fencing posture, Right, So that is the suspicion. Or you say, oh yeah, roll of the eyes, Or this. This sort of thing. I remember one time, this is the doubting gesture. One time I was lecturing in Chennai. So there's a psychiatrist sitting in the front row. I was talking about body language. He says, is this really true? And I said, Dr. Freeze, so he froze. I said, what was your question? He said, I was doubting. I said, see what I said about the gesture. He was doing precisely that. He said, is this really true? And so that, because Madras is the city of doubters, All right. So, next. Territorial. Space, as I said. So, if you go to any, see, it comes from a rhesus monkey, a species of monkey in Africa and some parts of India. They define their territory by urinating. The one urinates most of the bigger territory, right? So, in any office you go in corporate world, the bigger the office, bigger the boss. Right? We don't do that, we build walls. Idea is the same. Right? Is that true or not? So that's our territory. We don't like people to encroach in our territory. Haji? Aura. Yeah, the aura is the something that wise person gives out, or if there is a photography called Kirlian photography, which is a different thing, which measures the colors of and photographs the color of that also, of that aura, whether it's orange or blue or whatever, which is and you can decide from that, diagnose the person also. There is a theory like that also. There's a glow around, like halo that guards when they are pictured, they have this circle behind them of shiny. That's also an aura. Okay. So this is the territorial part. So this gives, now the point is, I'm bringing this to your consciousness. As children, again, we were very good at reading body language. Women as adults are much better than males. They detect the subtle signs of non-verbal thing. Men have to have very big signal to figure that out. So any guys who wants to do business with somebody, take that guy home and introduce him to your wife. If she says, not this guy, then forget it. Trust her judgment. Okay? She's a better judge than you are. But as children, we were good, Little kid is playing with the toys and uncle happens to walk in. Mommy, uncle's eyes are funny. Why? Because kahin pe nigah hai, kahin pe nishana. So what does he get for saying it? Huh? Right? So next time he learns not to say things. So when he grows up, he says, something about him bothers me. I can't put my finger on it. Some vibes he gives out. So he's inarticulate. So we are inarticulate. What I'm suggesting to you, learn to become articulate with your non-verbal communication. Learn to observe aggressively, as they call in Harvard University, aggressive observation. Learn to observe. Then learn to interpret. First learn to observe the data that's available. And for having this, you again must have done your homework, because you have not done your homework, you have no energy left to observe anything. True or not? At this time, let me give you two models of communication. We are talking about how, so some of the things you need to know for the how purpose. Let me give you two models of communication. First one is a triangle. All of you can imagine the triangle? When I walked into this room and I was being introduced, your mind for all practical purposes was at the base of the triangle. Huh? And lots of vertical lines, if you can imagine on that base line, they represented thoughts. So you, as I was introduced and I got up, you're wondering, this guy we're going to listen to for two hours? Hope it's not too boring, I should have gone to bathroom before I came here. I wonder what my wife is doing while I'm sitting here. Huh? I wonder whether they commit any grammatical mistakes. All these thoughts go through your mind. Huh? So when the speaker starts speaking, first few sentences don't register. If my car is illegally parked outside, my mind is over there. If I got stomach cramps, my energy invested into taking care of this, I cannot speak fluently. You understand? So ideally, the slower the base of the, smaller the base of the triangle, the better the communication. Your job is to bring the audience there and you have to be there. This is where the communication happens. So that's the process. Are you with me? That's the process. Now, second model of communication. See, today, right now, I'm talking to you, you are receiving my message. So I'm the communicator, you are receiver. I ask you a question, you respond, you are the communicator, I am the receiver. Now, so this is the continuum, communicator, receiver. I am conveying something to you. So whatever I want to convey the message, what am I doing with it? How am I conveying it? How am I conveying it? Huh? Through gestures and speech. Is that correct? Which means I'm coding my message in gestures and words. All languages are basically coding systems. And by coding we mean it's understood by the people who are initiated into that system. Right? If I say khawateen or hazrat, so you wonder, some of you say, what is he saying? So you wonder, what am I saying? Because you are not initiated into that system. So all languages are coding. So I code in certain things. And it's understood by the people who are initiated into that system. Now, when we talked about the gestures, some gestures have meanings which are universal, while some gestures are cultural bound. Say, for example, this in America, like this other thing that I demonstrated, head, torso and the rest, that is universal. But certain gestures are typical of a given culture. In America, this means A-OK, first class. Huh? In Middle East, that's a vulgar gesture. Now imagine, man is on the moon. NASA sent the man on the moon. Whole world is watching. NASA is asking the guy, how is it up there? You know what he says? Arabs are watching too. Dirty Americans. Even on the moon. You see? Gesture is misinterpreted. Huh? Same way, I told you when I went to America, I didn't speak English. Huh? So what happened before I left, I got this scholarship, Rotary International Fellowship, to go to America for 1 year to study and lecture on Indian culture. Because I passed this, because I knew Sanskrit, Hindi and a little bit of music which could pass in the name of Indian culture. So they selected me. So I went to a friend of mine, Mark Christie, was a dear friend of mine. He died in that plane accident in October, Indian Airlines, few years back. Huh? Yeah. So this Mark Christie I went to, I said, Mark, I'm going to America. He started laughing. I said, why are you laughing? He said, what do you do there? I said, what do you mean? He said, you don't speak English. You have no manners. You don't know how to use knife and the fork. You don't eat meat. You don't drink liquor. What do you do in America? And I was absolutely shocked. I said, you're right. I suddenly realized my inadequacies. I said, what do I do? He said, well, you won't eat meat. Liquor is not available. I'll teach you some manners, some English, and how to use the knife and the fork. So 2 months before I departed, I became a student. So he taught me how to use the knife and the fork, which was all wrong because Americans do it the other way around. He taught me the British way. So that was wasted. Then he taught me English and manners. He said, when you meet somebody for the first time, you shake hands and say, how do you do? So other person will say, how do you do? When you depart, you say, nice meeting you or nice to have met you. If they offer you something, you have to say thank you. If they say thank you, you have to say, you are welcome or don't mention it. So I memorized about 200 words. 5th of February 1964, I arrived at San Francisco International Airport with a sitar suitcase and 200 words in English. 200 sentences memorized. And I sent a telegram before my departure that for the host Rotary Club that they can receive me at this airport at this time. So they sent their secretary, Mr. Charles Crichton, to receive me. He found me right away at the airport among thousands of people because I only one looked stupid enough, He's carrying my telegram. He says, are you Rushi Kumar Pandya? I said, yes, sir. He said, I'm Charles Crichton. So I extended my hand. I said, how do you do? He said, let's go. I said, this guy has no manners. But I thought, I'm here not to teach him manners. I should not forget mine. I said, thank you for coming, sir. So I'm hoping that he will say, you're welcome or don't mention. He said, you betcha. I don't know what it means. I'm afraid to ask because I'm a scholar. So, now imagine this. I have not slept for 24 hours because my biological clock is all mixed up. I have not eaten anything because I couldn't make any sense out of the menu to find out what was veg and what was non-veg. I'm hungry, I'm sleeping. I sit first time in my life in a car. I'm 24 years old, And I'm sitting in the car for the first time. He's driving and I'm awestruck by everything that's around me. He's asking me a question I'm supposed to answer. And he says, Rushi, is it okay if I call you Rushi? I say, everything is okay, sir. He said, what does your father do? I thought that was an easy question to answer. I say, he's a painter, sir. Oh, he paints houses. My father never painted a house in his life, So I had a problem. So Mark had told me, translate from Gujarati into English. I said, no, sir, not houses. Colors, pictures, brushes, canvas, I'm doing my best, So he said, oh, he's an artist. So I made a mental note. Next time somebody asks me, he's an artist, not a painter. So I'm learning English, So then Mark had told me, if they ask you a question, you got to ask a question. I said, sir, what do you do? He says, I'm a funeral director. In my life at that time, I had 3 directors, music director, film director, drama director. I never heard of a funeral director. And I was afraid to ask again because I'm supposed to be a scholar if he finds out next flight to Ahmedabad. So I said, that's very nice, sir. Terrible 6 months. I was fighting against everything. First day I walk in a classroom and I'm taking notes. Professor is talking. I don't understand half of the things he's saying. And I'm taking notes with pencil. I commit a mistake. So I have American students sitting next to me. I was the only Indian in the entire university. This is 1964. No influx at that time. So I'm writing and I commit a mistake. So I turn to this American. I say, do you have a rubber? And he starts laughing. I don't know why he's laughing. So he laughs, the professor is asking, what's the matter? He says, this Indian is asking for rubber. Entire class is laughing. I don't know why they are laughing. So professor said, what do you want? I said, sir, rubber. He said, what for? I said, rubber. He said, what for? So I again put, I said, sir, mistake, pencil. He said, oh, you want an eraser? I said, what's a rubber? He said, condom. So whatever English I knew was useless. You know? Huh? So the point is, so communicator, coding. My coding was all messed up. So the next is the other side, the other person has to do, the receiver has the message to do what? It's coding, then it happens? Decoding. I give you examples of coding and decoding. There's a psychiatrist in Pune, attended my course in psychotherapy, 2-day seminar. First day, at the end of the day, he says, sir, you are teaching us in English. I am Marathi speaking. All my patients are Hindi speaking. What should I do? I said, ideally you should talk to them in Hindi. I said, but do you know Hindi? He said, I got working knowledge. I said, that's government jobs. He said, no, my Hindi is good. I said, fair enough, I would not argue. So I gave him a simple script of relaxation. I said, just translate this in Hindi and bring it back to me tomorrow. So it was like muscles of your face are relaxed, and muscles of your arms are relaxed, your chest muscles are becoming heavy, your legs are becoming heavy. It was simplest possible script. Next day he brings it. He said, this is very easy. I said, great. He brings it to me. I read it. I start laughing. He said, why are you laughing? I said, my English line says, your legs are becoming heavy. Your Hindi translation says, aapke paanv bhari ho. He said, what's wrong with that? I said, this is what it means. It means you're pregnant. I said, imagine a lady comes to you and you tell her this. She wonders, how come you know and she doesn't? Huh? Let me give you an example of decoding. I have a steno, his name is Murthy. This Murthy married a Parsi girl. He's from Andhra. He married this Parsi girl, Shirin. He took her to Vijayawada, to meet his mother. So according to the South Indian tradition, this mother opened the house with Iya and Aarti and she said, Randi, Randi. This Shirin was furious, you know. She had a bad mother-in-law, but never this bad, you know. Picked a fight with her husband right outside the house. What kind of mother calling me Randi? Murthy says Shirin in Telugu, that means come, welcome, welcome. Then, what completes the loop? What will complete the loop? Feedback. And there is a lack of feedback. This is what happens to the message. I'll share with you a beautiful example from the army. One-way communication, no feedback. A colonel issued the following directive to his executive officers. Tomorrow evening is approximately 20:00 hours. The Halley's Comet will be visible in this area. An event which occurs once every 76 years. Have the men fall out in the battalion area. I'll explain this rare phenomenon to them. In case of rain, we will not be able to say anything, so assemble the men in the theater. I'll show them films of it. That's the message. No feedback was asked, so executive officer to company commander. By order of the colonel, tomorrow at 20:00 hours, Halley's Comet will appear above the battalion area. If it rains, fall the men out and march to the theater where this rare phenomenon will take place, something that happens every 76 years. Company commander to lieutenant. By order of the colonel, in tomorrow at 20:00 hours, the phenomenal Halley's Comet will appear in the theater. In case of rain, in the battalion area, the colonel will give another order, something which happens every 76 years. Lieutenant to sergeant. Tomorrow at 20:00 hours, the colonel will appear in the theater with Halley's Comet, something which happens every 76 years. If it rains, the colonel will order the comet into the battalion area. Sergeant to the squad. When it rains tomorrow at 20:00 hours, the phenomenal 76-year-old General Halley will drive his comet car through the battalion area. The fate of a message. In one of my workshops, I asked the participants to write down what are the, from the coding perspective, what could be from the communicator side, what could be the problem, from the receiver side. So here is the list that they gave me. From the communicator side, what are the barriers? Unwillingness to say things differently, unwillingness to relate to others differently. Regardless of which other people you talk the same thing. As I told you, you got to know your target audience and change accordingly. Then unwillingness to learn new approaches, voice quality, disagreement between verbal and non-verbal message, which I have demonstrated, lack of self-confidence, then vocabulary level, lack of enthusiasm, lack of training in the art of speaking and writing, lack of motivation, negative self-image. You don't feel good about yourself, you don't feel well, you have no good view about yourself. Lack of feedback, you just heard. Then prejudice. Listen, this is the major problem in communication, prejudice. So we have this prejudice. This country has no integration because of this. You know, we are brought up on these sort of prejudices, you know. Everything south of Mumbai was Madras. Whether it's a Keralite or a Karnataka or Andhra, it's a Madrasi. Idli dosa, you know. Terrible, you know. We don't distinguish, you know. And these prejudices, they come in the way of communication. So that's another thing. It's a human factor, as I said, that you got to think about. Then, from the receiver side, there are a whole lot of problems. Selective perception. People see and hear and see what they want to. Unwillingness to change. Lack of interest in the topic. For example, if AMA announced today that I'm going to talk about Adivasis in Gujarat and their sweat gland activities, you know. How many of you would come? You say, Sal, I don't even know my sweat gland activities. So, then rebuttal instinct. You know, there are some people in every audience whose full-time job is to disagree with the speaker regardless of what the speaker says. Then voice quality of the speaker, gestures of the speaker, lack of eye contact in the case communication is visible. Then the environmental factors, effect of acoustic noise, temperature in the room, too hot, too cold, this will also become a barrier. Then barriers imposed by a social or situational structure. Like in a doctor's office, if you go into a doctor's office, you know, people are going through magazines which are 15 years old and all the bad pictures have been taped, you know. And people don't talk, you know, just hiding their faces behind these magazines, you know. Same in a lift, which you must have experienced. Two people happily married, talking away outside the lift. Moment the door closes, they become absolute strangers. Is not true? You know, that does this to them, you know. So the point is, you got to be careful. There are certain things that you have to recognize, that how certain barriers come in the way. Social structure, situational structure. These are the barriers in communication. Now, one more factor is listening. See, we do 45% of the time, as I said, listening. And nobody teaches how to listen. Somehow they figure God gave you 2 years, you'll manage. So we don't listen well. Listening is of three types. Critical listening, listening for recall, and listening. Critical listening. In negotiation, I'm teaching a course here tomorrow, which is about critical listening, when you're negotiating something. You know, or in debates, that's critical listening. Then listening for recall. In college lectures, the professor is talking, you are listening, so you can recall that at the exam time. Third type is non-directive listening. Like Catholics, when they go for confession, for example, the father who is taking the confession in the confessional, he doesn't, you know, question why did you do that. His job is to listen. You know, you go to a counselor, his job is to listen. I had one experience. One time I was coming from New York. I landed in Paris. All my luggage got lost. All the notes I have collected over the years. I was very upset. So I went to the counter. I started complaining. So the person behind the counter said, you know, please wait a minute. So the lady comes out. She takes me on the side and says, so I sat down. She said, "Ha problem." So I started telling her about my problem. She was listening to me without ever interrupting me. Once in a while she said, "Kill the mash, what a pity, what a pity." You know, 20 minutes I talked. How long can you talk about lost luggage, you know? So after 20 minutes I was finished. I said, "What are you going to do?" "I miss you," which means nothing. I said, "What?" He says, "Sir, my job is to listen. Somebody is already solving your problem." So my job is to listen to irate customers like you, so you don't disturb the process over there. You know? So listening, non-directive listening. You know. If you want to be a good listener, number one, you should take responsibility for listening. even if the speaker is bad, if you want to get something out of it. You should be mentally and physically fit. If you are hungry, for example, then your mind is in the hunger pangs. Then minimize the interruptions. Then don't think of the answers or response while you are listening. Listen also for the energy in different words, which will tell you which things are more important to that person. About taking responsibility for listening, let me give an illustration. This happened with me right from in Ahmedabad. I was going to Delhi from here. I generally talk to the person who is sitting next to me on the plane. I have a habit making friends. I like talking to people. So here was this gentleman. We're going to Delhi. I started the conversation, found out he was from ISRO, space scientist. I don't know anything about space. So I asked him a couple of questions. He was fantastic, excellent communicator. So I was very excited that I can learn a lot from this person. The only problem was that he had this habit, when he talked, he sprayed spit on my face. And on a plane, you have to, the dialogue like he's like, in my face is like that, listen. Right? So think about it. You got to take responsibility to listen. If the person has something worthwhile to say, even if it may not be articulate, you rephrase it to make it meaningful for yourself. Then listen empathically. Means put your person in that person's mood and the feeling and share that with him. Don't be critical or judgmental while you are listening. Don't be sarcastic while you are listening. If you want to ask questions, ask open-ended questions, not accusative. Why did you do that? Which puts people on the defensive. So ask open-ended questions which will give you more information. Oh, really? How did it happen? When did it happen? What else happened? That all those questions will give you more information without putting the person on the defensive. Instead of yes, no answers. You like cricket? No. End of the story. Is it raining in Ahmedabad? Yes. The conversation doesn't go anywhere. You see? So learn to ask open-ended questions in conversation and communication. At this point, I'm going to stop. Ladies and gentlemen, I enjoyed being with you. So run away.